The door slammed behind me with a finality that felt rehearsed. Not angry. Not rushed. Practiced. I stood on the porch with my son on my hip. His small fingers knotted in my coat collar, his breath warm against my neck. It was late afternoon, the kind of gray that makes everything feel unfinished. My suitcase lay on its side like it had been thrown, not placed. "You can come back when you apologize," my mother said through the door. Not to me. At me. I didn't knock. I didn't beg. I stared at the peeling paint, listening to the lock click, and felt something inside me go very still. That was the moment I understood this wasn't about an argument. It was an eviction. An execution, and I was meant to kneel. I adjusted my son's weight, felt his heartbeat through my ribs, and thought, if this is how you want to play it, then I'll finish it. My mother always loved patterns. Not fairness. Not truth. Patterns. My sister fit her pattern perfectly. Loud laughter. Big apologies she never meant. A daughter who could do no wrong because she smiled like my mother did in old photos. They were mirrors. They reflected her best version of herself. I was the deviation, quiet, careful. The one who cleaned up after dinners and said thank you too often. The one who stayed when my sister left, who moved back home after my divorce because my son needed stability and I needed time. I paid rent. I cooked. I followed rules that were never written down but always enforced. And still, every story ended the same way. Me apologizing, my sister forgiven. My mother satisfied. The night before, my niece had broken my son's toy and laughed when he cried. I asked my sister, calmly, to tell her daughter to stop. That was my crime. Don't parent my child, she snapped. My mother chose a side before the sentence finished. By morning, my bags were packed. By afternoon, I was disposable. What disturbed me wasn't the cruelty, it was the confidence. My mother didn't hesitate. Didn't waver, she was sure I would fold. That I would come back alone, head bowed, apology ready. She'd done this before, just never this far. I strapped my son into the car and sat there longer than necessary, engine off. Listening to the tick of cooling metal. Something didn't add up. You don't kick out a paying doll with a toddler. Unless you're certain there will be no consequences. Unless you believe you're untouchable. That belief intrigued me, and beliefs, I'd learned, were fragile things. I called my grandma from a gas station parking lot. Not crying. Not rambling, I told her exactly what happened. There was silence on the other end. Not shock, calculation. Then she asked one question: did she put it in writing? I checked my phone. A text from my mother, sent an hour earlier. You're no longer welcome in my house until you apologize to your sister and her daughter. Don't contact me until then. I read it aloud. My grandma exhaled slowly, like someone who had just been handed confirmation. Oh, she said. So she finally did it. That's when I learned what I had never been meant to know. The house wasn't my mother's, it never had been. The house was in my grandmother's name. Always had been. A precaution. A lesson my mother never finished learning. My grandma didn't yell. She didn't threaten, she called her lawyer. I stayed silent. Observed. Let the machinery move. That night, I stayed with a friend. My son slept peacefully, unaware that his grandmother had gambled his stability to win a petty war. By morning, documents were drafted. Notices prepared. Accounts reviewed. Turns out, my sister had been living there rent-free for years. Turns out my mother had been using my rent to cover debts she never disclosed. And turns out, eviction laws don't favor people who illegally remove tenants, especially mothers with children. I said nothing. Silence, I discovered, was sharper than anger. The next day, my grandma arrived at the house with a legal notice and a calm smile. I wasn't there, I didn't need to be. My mother called me first. Voice trembling. We need to talk. My sister texted next. Paragraphs. Accusations. Panic disguised as rage. I waited. When I finally answered, I said only one thing. You told me not to contact you. The house was sold within the month. Proceeds rerouted. My mother's access revoked. My sister forced to find somewhere else to live. No apologies were offered. None were required. The power had shifted quietly, irrevocably. I think about that porch sometimes. The sound of the lock. The weight of my son in my arms. I remember how small they thought I was. I didn't destroy them with shouting or revenge fantasies. I let them collapse under the weight of their own certainty. My son will never remember that day. But I will. Not with anger, with clarity, because I didn't cry when they closed the door. I opened a better one.